All right. Welcome back to Lifting the Veil, everybody. Welcome back to another week of this. I guess we're just going to do Q&A once again. I don't have anything specific off the top of my head that I would like to cover. Let's see what we got here. This is the hugest piece that I've ever done thus far, and honestly, it is just absolutely it's absolutely staggering, astounding. But I want to bring you to just the one specific part that I was talking about a minute ago, about the upcoming possible major event that could be taking place. It's basically an exact copycat effect of what happened last year in Las Vegas. And so yeah, I'm gonna do a formal presentation on this because it's that important, and it needs that much coverage, and this is something that's very powerful. So yeah, I just want to cover this briefly. If you guys are aware of my one video presentation that got deleted by YouTube, and that's the whole reason why I couldn't do live streaming up until a couple weeks ago, is because they revoked my my live stream status for under a community guidelines strike because of my Code Orange video that I did, which is also based off of Truth Heresy's Orange House of Death series. But yeah, so if you know what I'm talking about, if you've seen that video, which is now deleted from my channel, and I plan on uploading it again, I'm gonna have to go back and go through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that, you know, it's not violating any guidelines and it's not offensive. What they deleted it for was for hate speech, even though it was just outlining the direct symbolism and the actual, you know, the Hollywood symbolism of Code Orange, the orange and the purple, MK Ultra, things like that, and regarding certain FF events by the government. So how that could be construed as hate speech, I have no idea, possibly because it covered the events of the Pulse nightclub event, which was, you know, involving, it was a gay nightclub, and so when you openly talk about how this was an FF attack on the gay people, you know, it was basically designed to, you know, it was an overt attack on them. I don't see how exposing that could possibly be viewed as hate speech unless it's hate speech against the Illuminati. I mean, if that's what they're trying to imply. So I have no idea. It makes no sense. It's ridiculous how it could be considered hate speech. But yeah, so anyways, I'll have to go through and redo that. But so anyways, upcoming is a major concert by Deep Purple and Judas Priest. And I'm just going to go through this real briefly because, you know, this is going to be a future presentation in and of itself. And it's part of, as you can see, this giant, you know, it's basically a whole book in and of itself that I've compiled based on many of my past presentations and articles, and it's amazing. It's absolutely mind-blowing how it all comes together in a just completely astounding storyline. And but yeah, so anyways, if you've seen the Code Orange series, that's again what I'm forewarning people that could be taking place. So basically my bottom line is, boycott this concert, boycott this Deep Purple and Judas Priest concert. I usually wouldn't say stuff like that, except this is a direct copycat of what happened last year with the Las Vegas Route 91 harvest ritual. And I can prove that conclusively. It's the exact same. I mean, it's all the same symbolism, all the esoterica, it's all the same stuff. So it's the orange and the purple, it's the orange house, you know, the Royal Dutch Orange House of Nassau and Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which I probably shouldn't even cover because this might be considered hate speech once again. But the main culmination of this concert tour is promoting their two main new albums, which by Judas Priest, their new album is called Firepower, and the new album by by Deep Purple is called Infinite. It's called Infinite, but it's emphasized as Infinite. Let me scroll through here. Sorry, I don't have all this already laid out, but yeah, so Deep Purple is Infinite. And as you can see, it's the exact same Code Orange symbolism that we've covered in the previous series. I also covered this in the Symbols of Power Part 1 series. So it's huge. You know, we can see the blatant orange warning symbolism of the icebreaker with the lemniscate. The lemniscate is you know, the infinity symbol. Essentially, it's the hourglass symbol, the symbol of time, the symbol of plasma physics, of the you know, the dual torus dynamic of plasma physics. We'll be going much deeper into this in the new film I'm working on. But so yeah, that's Deep Purple, the new album from Judas Priest's Firepower. So combined together, it emphasizes the illusion of infinite firepower. When we think of infinite firepower, that makes us think of yet another agenda that's outlined based on the, you know, this media narrative, this media speaking point about, you know, assault weapons and, you know, high ammunition magazines and high ammunition rounds and things like that. In other words, infinite firepower. So there's a huge esoteric illusion there. And I'm sort of starting at the bottom, scrolling my way back up. I'm skipping through all the Trump and the Parkland issues there and a lot of that. But back to this specific thing that I wanted to just show you briefly. I'm not going to go too deep into it. This is all on my on my Patreon account for those of you who want to find it. And also, I want to bring this up briefly. I posted on the channel about, you know, I want to make this possibly private access to my patrons only, because these are my future presentations that will be coming out in film format. And it is very controversial, so I sort of want to have it as an exclusive release for my patrons. But, you know, there was a lot of feedback from you guys that simply just don't understand what I mean by that. So the way it works is all the videos, all the presentations and films on my channel are always free, full access to everyone. I can't possibly, I mean, I could charge for it, but I mean, I'm not going to do that. You know, that's the whole point of why I do this, is to, you know, to educate and to inform and inspire as well. But for the patron access, if you want to get that before the films come out in these full article and ebook formats, then, you know, I think that should be an exclusive for my patrons, because I feel like I owe them something specific, something more than what the general public can, you know, what's free for everyone to go through and see. But so the way that works is, you know, you can sign up for just as little as $1 a month, you know, to contribute to all the work, that literally countless thousands of hours that I put into writing this one presentation alone, let alone just the actual, you know, months of production value that goes into putting these into film format. But so I just wanted to outline that for you guys. That's how it works. It doesn't mean that I'm restricting all my YouTube channel to just, you know, patrons exclusive. That's not how it works. It means that you still get everything. I'm going to do all my videos, all the presentations as is. But if you want to go through and, you know, cite all these sources and cite this, you know, cite everything that I'm talking about, and, you know, go through it point by point as the film comes out, and that way you can use it as like a study guide basically. You know, I feel that's worth at least $1 a month. So, you know, you can choose to, you know, donate $1 a month by becoming a patron or not, you know, whatever, it's up to you guys. But I just wanted to put that out there. But so that's the outline of what I have just completely updated with this new book. It's absolutely astounding, and it's based off the foundation of my friend Truth Heresy's Orange House of Death series. But this, I mean, I've expanded on. I mean, when you understand this, what I'm talking about, it's so foundational that you will understand the way the world really works. You will see events like never before, and you will be able to see them before they come out if you're paying attention. And that's the whole point of why I'm putting all this out there, is because it's so important that, you know, I can tell that this is a huge possibility that it could be coming. It's a major sign of foreshadowing, a major sign of predictive programming that could be coming up this fall, during the harvest season, during the orange fall, the season of the sun's decline, of the death of the sun, the death of the season, at the harvest season of the Jewish high holy holidays, the Jewish high holy days, which is Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, which is the reaping, the time of the harvesting, and real quick, let me get my computer batteries running real low here, so I gotta get my charger real quick. Let me put something up in the meantime, just to in the meantime, while I run and grab my charger real quick. So yeah, sorry about that. Okay. right. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, now back at it. And let's jump right into your questions. Let's see. I should be able to see your chat coming up. So, all right. Let's get to the questions and get into some content other than what I just outlined real quick. Okay. Let's see what we got. Yeah, I'm gonna ignore all of that, guys, because I entertained that enough last week. So yeah, I'm ignoring all that. I might consider just muting you guys out. Let's see, for something serious here. Can I talk about L? Okay, that's a good topic. Also, there were some good. Let me just see what you guys are, if you're bringing up anything here before I go through. And I put out a post yesterday asking for some important topics that you guys might be interested in, and there was a couple. There was a couple interesting topics that I think I might like to discuss. So let me see what we're working with here. And then I'll go back and compare to see what people asked me yesterday, and see what we got. Okay. So far, L is a major foundational topic that we can cover. I've as you guys may know, I've done a full, and I might consider doing a full film about that. But it's such a huge foundational topic. I don't even know how I would begin to cover it. But I've covered bits and pieces all throughout it, and all throughout my films and my videos. So I'm trying to cover it, sort of chip away at that huge block. But let's see, shed light on the Pope. Make a video regarding stem cells and menstrual blood that can cure a lot of diseases. Let's see what else. What tools can I use to decode ancient and religious scripture for holistic understanding and practical application or interpretation? That's a good question. It's extremely it's a little vague, considering that that's basically everything that my channel is all about. Are covering the many foundational pieces that can be used to to do all of that, as I just sort of briefly touched on in the intro. Okay, but we'll go through and we'll address some more of these specifically. Talk about the Illuminati. Okay, these are all very vague, very broad, general topics. There's nothing really specific that sort of, I can latch onto. But yeah, these are all topics that they're very huge. They're very broad, so it's hard to bring these down into a distilled, very short, poignant segment. That's the whole reason why I do the full films, is because it's that hard to actually distill it down into a small speaking point. What is the symbolic meaning of Christ's death for 3 days? That's a good question. Okay, what is this? Devlin Greener asks, what is the symbolic meaning of Christ's death for 3 days in relation to the sacred secretion, physiologically, astrologically, etc.? Thank you. Okay, so with that, let me see what I can pull up to sort of illustrate this for you guys as I cover through some of that. Let me bring up some source material. Okay, let me bring up the I forget the name of the titles of the articles off the top of my head. Winged Crown. Okay, there it is. Pull that up. Also, let me see here. Winged Crown. Wait, why isn't it coming up? Having some trouble. Winged Crown. There it is. Okay, scroll down, and then we'll go back to, okay, some other things on Christ's death, 3 days in the tomb, and astrotheology and astrophysiology, as I call it. let's see, where else have I outlined this? I've done tons of graphics on it that I've got off the top of my head, but I've narrated it in other presentations, so I want to be able to just sort of skim through that. So let me see, which one was it? Sacred burial. Why? There we go. Why we bury from womb to tomb. There we go. Okay, so here's some source material that we can work with. Okay, so the concept of Christ's death being 3 days in the tomb is not anything new or not anything unique to Christianity. It comes from every other ancient religion, every other ancient theology and mythology under the sun pretty much involves, because it's an astrotheological concept. It involves the study of astronomy. That's ultimately what it all comes from, what it all goes back to. These are allegorical stories that are basically using the anthropomorphism of the stars, the ascribing of the stars and the heavens as deities in order to tell the story so that it's passed down over time. These are not literal stories. They typically are not literal history. So they are very symbolic, and the symbolism is far more comprehensive than any aspect of the actual, if you want to consider it to be a literal historical figure or any sort of historical accounts. There basically is no evidence of historical accounts of these things actually taking place, but there is infinite bodies of work regarding to the actual allegorical and mythological interpretations of these things. So okay, let's get into it. So Christ is crucified on, I mean, I could bring this other article up. It's hard to know where to start with a topic like this. And that's why it needs a full presentation to be able to be brought out and completely comprehensively covered in a linear narrative format, without sort of skipping over things and leaving a lot of things out along the way. So let's see where a good starting point is. Okay, so I've done a full, basically an ebook presentation. This will be a full film in and of itself. It will cover the allegorical aspects of the crucified Christ or the Savior within us in the form of astrophysiology or mythophysiology, how mythology, how astrology, astronomy, this all corresponds directly into the human physiology, as I've covered fully in the Symbols of Power series. So if you're going to ask me about this, I mean, it was covered fully in the Symbols of Power series, but we can go so much deeper into it. I'm just trying to find a good way to start here, a good starting point. Okay, so damn it, a lot of my images aren't appearing here. That's the whole point of why I put these together, so that I have all my images outlined so I can just go through it and sort of show it like a slideshow, since I haven't prepared these all beforehand. Damn it, all the major important images aren't showing up. Okay, well... Okay, so when Christ is crucified, it represents the actual, Christ is crucified at Golgotha, which is place of the skull, which is Calvary, which is, it's the hill where Christ was crucified. It's identifying the human skull, the human physiology. So Christ is crucified within. The Christ represents the midbrain. It represents the basal ganglia of the human anatomy, of the brain. And I can show this in basically an infinite number of ways. He's crucified at Golgotha at the age of 33, which is the 33 vertebrae of the spine, which ascend the ladder to heaven, which is Jacob's ladder, how Jacob struggles with the angels. He sees the angels ascending and descending the ladders to heaven, which we'll go down to. That is actually just basically a mythological interpretation of the human central nervous system, which the central nervous system has two tracks of the spinal cord, which are the ascending tracks and the descending tracks. Interesting. Jacob laid his head on the stone of scone, which is the base of the spine. It's the sacrum of the spine. The stone of scone, which is the holy bone. It's known as in Latin as os sacrum, which is the holy bone. So sorry, I'm having to jump all around here because, see, this is why I do the full presentations. It's because it's got to flow in just the right format. And but yeah, so the angels ascending and descending the ladder to heaven that Jacob saw. And so that's referring to the angles of the zodiac, the angles of light. The angles, there are angles of ascension and angles of declination. The angles of declination are the angles of where the house begins, and then through it goes through 30 degrees of arc through each house, and it then descends into basically into the next house. Or as the larger cycles of the seasons go, the sun ascends in Aries, in the sign of the spring. It ascends to its new form, the new light, the rebirth of the springtime, of the light of the world, and then it goes into its height or its peak at the summer solstice, which is the sign of Cancer, and then it begins to decline from that point on, and so it goes into its fall or into its ember states during the fall, and then it goes into the death of the season, which is the winter, and that's where the sun is crucified on the Southern Cross constellation. Sorry I don't have all this readily available in images, but that's what the full presentations are for. But, okay, so the Christ being, dead for 3 days, going to the underworld. Christ, after he is in the womb, or he's in the tomb, which is actually I don't have all this already laid out, so it's hard to be able to, do it in a linear narrative. So, okay. Christ as the sun, as the essence of the solar archetype, the solar child, the soul invictus, the solar, savior. He is the light of the world. He is the light giver. He is the light bringer, the light bearer, which is also the same attribution to Lucifer, the son of the morning, the son of the dawn, which is the dawn is the dawn goddess, Aurora, Eos, Ostara, on and on and on. Ishtar, Venus, the goddess of the dawn, the bringer, the heralding of the light, also attributed in Christianity to the Virgin Mary. So, she's the goddess. And so her son, the son of the morning, or the son of the dawn, we'll be covering this much further in my full Easter presentation, which I've got semi-completed. I began it, and I wasn't able to adequately finish it before Easter rolled around, so I'll have that finished by next Easter. But so the sun ascends in Aries. In the springtime, it goes through its cycles at its height of Cancer, which is the summer solstice, falls and it goes into its declination at the Capricorn at the winter solstice, where the sun is then crucified on the cross. Goes, it's basically the solstice means sun stands still. Solstice in Latin means stand still. So that's the point where the sun is seen on the horizon as standing still. In other words, from that point on, it doesn't ascend or it doesn't descend in the sky. It does in the cycles of day and night, but in the larger, if you're looking at it as a time lapse, that's the point where the sun, it rests. It goes into a rest state, in its ember state, when the sun has gone, the light hasn't completely died. It hasn't completely died, but it has just gone into a deep, deep slumber after being stung by the kiss of death, by the kiss of Judas, which I pulled that up in this other article. Oh, no, I exited out of it already. So Judas is the backbiter. He is the sign of Scorpio, which is why Judas is always seen wearing orange. And I could pull this up real quick. Symbolism will be their downfall. But so that's why Judas is typically always depicted as being orange. He is the orange amber. He is the sign of Scorpio, who stings the sun, who gives it the kiss of death, because the scorpion sting was seen as a snake, basically as a snake bite, and so it's what actually it puts you into a deep sickness. So the sun, the light of the world, has gone into a sickness. It's gone into a slumber state during its ember state of the season, and then it dies on the cross for 3 days, and then it is actually reborn again from that point on, as the sun begins to then ascend, climbs its way back to its rebirth, to its resurrection during the season of Passover, during the Pashka in Hebrew, which is the sign of Aries, which is the spring solstice, the vernal equinox, which is when things spring forth. It brings forth new life. So we can get into this here. So the Christ goes he goes into the underworld. He is placed in the tomb. The tomb is the sign of the underworld. It's the caverns of the goddess. It is the underworld of the goddess labyrinth. It is the realm of the darkness, of the cool wet moisture of inside the earth goddess, which is actually the womb of the goddess. So the tomb is the womb. It is where we are all life is born from, and this is why we bury our dead into the ancient tumulus mounds, which are the exact same, and we covered this in Symbols of Power Part 2 and Part 3 as well, much more in depth. This is gonna be a full presentation in and of itself, so I don't want to basically give it all away too quickly. But so the tumulus mounds, these are why they're specifically shaped. And this is my original, I mean, you won't find this anywhere, absolutely nowhere. This is something that I have completely put together, not just linguistically, it goes deep, but into the symbolism, goes extremely deep. So Christ is crucified, he goes into his slumber state, he goes into his mummification. He is put, okay, my image isn't showing up here, so let me go back to the source of it. Okay, so he is mummified, which the mummification comes from the ancient Egyptian mummification ritual, which was called KRST, the cursed, the Kerest, which is the where we get the root word of Christ, KRS1, the Kerest, it is the mummification representing the larva state of what the Egyptians observed as the dung beetle's life cycle, which goes into the larval state during its slumber. It's during its rebirth stage in the womb, which is the dung ball. That's what it is. So the Egyptians observed the dung beetle's life cycle, and all of these stories, these allegories, they come from the cycles of nature itself. So the cycles of nature, all wisdom was attained from observing nature, observing the creatures, its functions, observing the cycles, the seasons, the crops, the observation of the plants. So ultimately, all wisdom comes from nature and can be had solely by observing nature. And the further we get away from that into thinking that these things are literal history, the further we will fall and decline into our conscious slumber of not understanding the true essence of these stories. So the Christ is crucified in his, and so it's too broad of a topic to be able to jump around from the it would take too long to jump from the astronomical, which is the macrocosmic, of the astrological, astronomical aspects of it, the zodiacal aspects, to then jump into the science and the biological from the anthropological aspects of studying archaeology, archaeoastronomy, and all that. So it's a huge topic to we would have to jump around from all these different topics just because I'm sorry I don't have it all laid out in a comprehensive thing off the top of my head. So I mean, that's why these things are huge presentations in and of themselves, is because so okay. A good place to start. So the cavern, the womb, the tomb, that in physiology that represents the third ventricle of the brain. It's also known as the cave of Brahma, or it's where the cerebrospinal fluid, or the Christ, which Christ is Latin for oil. It means Christos, Greek chrism, which is oil, and anointed. It means anointed because we anoint things with the oil. The sacred oil is the sacred fluid. It's the sacred fluid that was used to wrap these death shrouds in. The Egyptians, how do they mummify a corpse? In order to preserve that body for it to be reborn again, for the resurrection of Osiris. So Christ is an allegory. He's a correspondence. He's an epithet of Osiris. He is the same mythological aspect of Osiris. In the same story, Osiris is cut up. It's the mythological allegory of the slain god, the slain harvest lord of agriculture, of the grain, of the fertility lord, which is the fertility of the springtime. The green one, the green is the neophyte, who is the fool, who is also the old wise one in the tarot, who becomes the beginning and the end of the journey of the life cycle. It's the beginning, the death, and the rebirth. It is the completion of the circle. It's the Alpha and the Omega. The Alpha and the Omega is the symbol of the Ankh. We have the Aleph and the Om, or the Omega, which is the goddess womb. It's this ancient hieroglyph of the water pot, which is the symbol of the goddess Nut, or Nuit. and the same hieroglyph of the essence of the waters, which were called Nu, which again, the Nu, the waters of Nu, which is the waters of rebirth, the waters of life, the waters of the womb, of the amniotic fluid, which is also the sacred egg. It's the sacred egg which is laid upon the primordial mound of creation in ancient Egyptian cosmology. So it's the symbol of the sacred egg. This is also literally the exact same symbol as the goddess uterus. And so I don't have all these images off the top of, I'd have to scroll through my archives or, to see where I've actually laid all these out. But so it is the sacred cosmic egg, which is laid upon the cosmic primordial waters of Nu in ancient Egyptian cosmology. The primordial waters is the abyss, the underworld. It's the depths, the primordial waters of the cosmos, which the sacred egg, what's known as in mythology as the cosmic egg, represents mythologically and physiologically corresponds to the thalamus, which is where we have our electrical impulse. It's where our ideas emanates from, because it's I don't want to give all this too much of it away, but it's the it's the same science as the Tesla coil. It's the same morphology, or for lack of better words off the top of my head, it's the same essence as the Tesla coil. It's the same design where Tesla gets his ideas is from the cycles of the mythology, of the theology, of the astronomical essence of nature itself. So that is what the thalamus is. It's the light. It is the Ankh, and it's interesting. I could go into it, and what I want to do is we will cover just a specific aspect of some of these things in future videos. I'll go and I'll do a live stream about just a specific aspect about all of these. But it's good that you brought this up, because it sort of gets me rolling. But it's hard to gather my thoughts on it, just being asked about it, because it's such a huge topic to summarize. And that's why I would need to go through and edit a lot of things out to make sure it's fluent, because I'm not a very fluent thinker. It comes, very sporadically. And but so this graphic is one of the most powerful ones that I've made. It's extremely, the depth of it is, the symbolism is extremely deep. So the Christ is crucified at the cerebellum, physiologically. So the Christ, the chrism, the oil per se, and this is where, George Carey, God, Man, Word Made Flesh, and, John St. Julian, Santos, and everyone else, they summarize it very nicely, but it's not actually scientifically or medically anatomically correct. And that's what I'm intending to do. That's what I did in the Symbols of Power Part 2 and Part 3 series, is I'm actually going through the medical anatomy and making sure that it's completely accurate and completely sound, because if it's true, it can be proven. And there is actually, the cerebrospinal fluid is not an oil. That's not what it represents the Christ, because the Christ represents the essence of anointed. It represents the anointed one. So you are anointed, your brain is anointed in the cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid is not an oil based fluid. It's basically just mostly salt water is what it is. And I can get deep into the linguistics of that, about this. It might not show up because it's still a rough draft. But I covered it briefly in the Symbols of Power Part 2. The salvation, the salivation, the salt, the sal. The root word sal means salt, and it refers to, it's where we get our word salivation, which saliva is a salt-based fluid. It's an alkaline fluid, and salt or sal, salt is a halide. It's a salty element, and so it's what we use to preserve things. It's a preservative. So in other words, it saves. It is the salvation. We use salt to preserve meats. We use it to preserve, it's used as a preservative. It saves things from decomposing. Same thing within the human body. It preserves the tissues. It keeps them in an alkaline state, which the alkaline state is the negentropic side, the feminine side of physics. It preserves things. It maintains things. It rebuilds things. It regenerates things. So that's what an alkaline base polarity in chemistry represents. So the salty fluid of the saliva, the salivation, is the sacred secretion. It's the excretion. It's the sacred secret, because sacred and secret are etymologically linked, and it's pronounced secret, secret. So in other words, sacred, secret, secrete, and secrete literally comes from secret, which a secret means to separate. Okay? That's why secret societies, when you're keeping something secret, you are separating it from everything else. You are keeping it a secret from everyone else. You're keeping it separate. You gotta keep them separated. Hey, do what I say. So yeah, so it's the, you keep it separated. It's the separation. It's the secret. So when you secrete something, when the third ventricle in the brain, it's known as the most tender layer, is called the pia mater. And do I have the images? I would have to bring up the images from another presentation in and of itself. Let's see if I have it labeled. I don't know if I actually have it labeled or if I would have to go through and search for it. What would I have it labeled? I'm trying to draw on so many sources all at once that it's... do I have a virgin? Do I have the virgin here? Do I? I don't know. I've got it. It should be in here. I don't know. Okay, so, you know, again, in this article here, I covered, you know, we've got the Egyptian primordial sacred mound, which is the mound of Atum, which is, you know, where the god of creation was sitting atop. The creator gods, as Ptah, who is, you know, as we covered in Symbols of Power Part 2, is represented also of the midbrain. So he is the one that speaks. He is the one that speaks things into creation through his thought and through the word, which is where all things come from, the primordial waters. In other words, the cosmic waters of nothing, of the naught, of the nothing, of the new, which gives birth to the amniotic fluid, the amniotic waters of the womb, the primordial black abyss, the da'ath, the levels of, you know, it's the primordial means the first. It means the beginning. So in other words, we're talking about the very beginning of creation, the very speaking of things, or the birthing of things into creation. So Christ is born in the third ventricle, which is a little cavernous area of the brain, which houses, and the thinnest layer, the most delicate layer of the brain, is called the pia mater, which in Latin means tender mother. They named it the pia mater because it is the most delicate layer of the brain, but it's highly esoteric and it's deeply symbolic because it represents the tender mother, which is the Virgin Mary, who gives birth to the child of the Christ, who give the Virgin Mother, who holds the Christ child in her arms. And so the Christ is born of the goddess Vesca Pisces. He is born of the cavern, of the goddess Cavernosum, the underworld, which is the underworld of the goddess, which is the earth itself. So in other words, we're talking about the infinite cycles of death and rebirth, of resurrection, the infinite cycles. And I'm sorry that so many of these images aren't showing up here, or otherwise it would make perfect sense. But so the primordial waters of the goddess, the womb, is where we are born from. It is the Sheol. It is the underworld. And when we look at the ancient Hebrew depictions, as I've covered in Symbols of Power Part 2, is representative of, it's a direct allegory. It's showing you the human skull here. That's what it's showing you. This is not flat Earth. Get out of here. Get real. Seriously. Get an education. This is not flat Earth. This is referring to the astrophysiology. It's a skull. It's a skull it's the human physiology. We're talking about the hemispheres of the sun and the moon, the left and the right hemispheres, the masculine. Look, it's a direct drawing of it. Look, you have the waters of the heavens above coming through the firmament, through the windows of heaven. What is that? We covered this in Symbols of Power Part 3. It's where these little, I forget what they're called off the top of my head. I would have to pull up the images. cerebrospinal fluid. I forget if it comes up or if it, no, I don't have it labeled. But so that's where the cerebrospinal fluid. There is a little gap in the arachnoid layer of the brain, which allows the cerebrospinal fluid to circulate up and around the cranial cavity, up and around throughout the brain, and so the path of the cerebrospinal fluid is the path of the Christ. It's the path of the Son, the inner Son within us. So it is born in the third ventricle. That's where the cerebrospinal fluid is produced. It is secreted from the pia mater. So in other words, it's the sacred secretion. It's the sacred secret. It is the secret. It is secreted from. It's the salty solution that's secreted into the cerebrospinal canal within the central area of the nervous system. So it then circulates down through to the base of the spine. It circulates, let's see if I have the images off the... So it then circulates down through the spine to the base. It descends down into hell, which after Christ is crucified, so Christ is crucified at the cerebellum. He is crucified on the sacred tree. He's not crucified, the cross it's wooden. So, the wooden, the interesting linguistic connection is the Woden. Woden was crucified upon the sacred tree. All the mythological savior figures, the mythological slain gods, the slain deities. Oh, okay, so here's all the symbolism that I've been describing to you. But okay, so where's the... Okay, here's what I was talking about. Sorry about that. I should have just... Yeah, my thoughts are all over the place. So, okay, we covered this, and these are my slides from Symbols of Power Part 2. And we covered this even more in depth in Symbols of Power Part 3 film series. So, the Vesica Piscis is literally the same geometry of the human brain. And so that's what creates the mandorla. The mandorla is basically, it's also called an aura. And aura comes from the root word of or, which is gold, A-U-R. It's the golden light that is emitted. It's the golden aura. It's the halo that is emitted around the Savior, around an enlightened being, or around the anointed one. So that's what is. So the Vesica Piscis, which is the fish, it's the fish, the ichthys, which is the Greek words for the Greek name for Christ, Jesus Christos, ichthys, essentially, in Greek, which is the geometry of the fish. It's the sacred symbolism of the Jesus fish as we know it. I don't have any images pulled up right here about that, but so that's what it represents. So this is as above, so below the belt. An original correspondence that I've come up with so this is something that is actually my original discovery. As above, so below is an ancient Hermetic concept, but directly correspondent to how what is above the belt is correspondent to what is below the belt is something that I haven't seen anyone else. I've never found this anywhere else. But then again, I don't read many books, so I like to allow this to all just come through my own study of the symbolism and through the anatomy and just see how it all comes out, and like to think about that. So as far as I know, it hasn't been uncovered anywhere else. But so, that's why we see the Christ being born from the Vesica Piscis, held in the arms of the Pia Mater, of the Virgin Mary, who is the Queen of Heaven. So the Christ is the son of the morning. Oh, hath thou have fallen, son of the morning. Which, the son of the dawn goddess then falls at the decline of the season, goes into the underworld, goes into the tomb, and is then eventually again resurrected and reborn again as the cycles of nature go, as the cycles of the sun, of summer and winter. So the Christ is born of the Pia Mater, which the Pia Mater is the most tender layer inside the brain. It's the thinnest, most delicate layer of the brain, and it's what lines the third ventricle. And so in the third ventricle, we literally see the goddess, the Virgin Mary, with her hood, which this is known as the... I can't even say this. I probably shouldn't even be showing the symbolism, because it's going to be, it might be banned, and it might be taken down as offensive, or, put with the age restrictions and all of that on it. But so this is known as the clitoral hood. The Virgin Mary, or the Virgin Goddess, is always shown with wearing the sacred hood. This is why the nuns wear the hood, and that's what it represents. It represents as we covered in Symbols of Power, it's Little Red Riding Hood. It is representing the goddess fecundity, the goddess anatomy, the goddess mythology. So here's the clitoris. It's shrouded by the clitoral hood, which is the shrouds that, that hood the goddess, that hood, it's the Red Riding Hood. So the Vesica Pisces, the mandorla, it means almond shaped, and the almond shape is the shape of most glands of the body. The clitoris, or the clitoris is the almond shape, particularly which corresponds to the male anatomy as the penile glands. Glands means acorn shaped, which gives us our word gland. So when I say glands, Glans is the, I forget, is it Latin? I think it's Latin. It means acorn shape. So when I say glands, I'm not doing I'm not making a grammatical error. It literally is etymologically linked to gland. So and glands are what secrete the sacred secret. It's the sacred secret. It's the secretion, which usually, such as we covered in Symbols of Power, which, the clitoris corresponds to, and the penile frenulum, it corresponds to the little grape shape of the uvula in the throat, or on the tonsils. The uvula is it hangs like a little grape, like a bundle of grapes. And the uvula is responsible, it's what secretes the sacred secretion of the salty saliva of the salvation, which is what preserves our tissues. The salt is the the sacred salvation, which is born from the inner sanctum of, in the brain is born of the cave of Brahma, which so here's what I was talking about earlier, the symbolism of the Hebrew cosmology, which flat earthers think refers to the flat earth. No, it doesn't. It refers to the human physiology. So here are your windows of heaven, from which the waters of the waters above are separated from the waters below. So you have the waters above the cerebrum, which are separated from the waters below in the cerebrospinal fluid, which descends down into hell, into the underworld, when Christ, after he is entombed and he is enshrouded in the sacred mummification of the shrouds, which are anointed with the sacred oil, with the Christ, the Christ, the karst. In geology we have what's called the karst, the karst, which is a deep layer of sedimentary rock, which is revealed through a process of erosion, and through I believe it's through a fissure in the rock creates. I don't know the karst off the top of my head. I should, because we covered the karst in back when I was a tour guide, a geological tour guide for when I worked in the caverns. So it's interesting. And a funny story about the caverns is, in the caverns we have what were called the cave curtains, which are, again, this is all goddess symbolism. It's the cavernosum is the corpus cavernosum of the goddess anatomy. Do I have it off the top of my head? I don't know. The cavernosum is the cavernous body of the clitoris. Is the cavernosum of the goddess is the part that fills with the blood. It's the part that fills with it's how females get an erection. Yes, males and females have erections, because the anatomy is exactly the same. The female anatomy the genitalia is the exact same as the male genitalia. They're slightly different in morphology, but all the core components are there. The glands of the clitoris is the head of the clitoris, which is the same correspondence of what in the male becomes the head of the penis. It becomes the glans penis. And so the foreskin of the penis becomes the foreskin, or the clitoral hood of the goddess. And the corpus cavernosum is the cavernous body along the sides, which are the legs or the crusts of the clitoris, which fill with blood. That's the part that fills up with blood, and it's how the female gets aroused. And so females get erectile dysfunction the same way that males do. And what causes erectile dysfunction is actually high cholesterol, is a diet of high meat, high saturated fat, and a lot of oils. Eating too much Christ, or eating too much of the body of Christ, which is the oils, whether it's olive oil or whether it's coconut oil or whether it's, flax oil, even cannabis oil. It doesn't matter what kind of oil you're consuming. Oils are damaging to the endothelial function, which is the cellular lining of the arterial walls of the veins, of the blood vessels. And it inhibits it. What it does is it paralyzes the function of the endothelium, which is it secretes nitrates, it secretes nitric oxide. So the vascular walls, the endothelium. The endothelium is the layer of the tissue cells that line the blood vessels, and so they secrete nitric oxide, which is it allows the blood platelets to flow freely. It creates blood viscosity, so it makes the blood more viscous, and that expands the blood vessels. It makes the blood more powerful. It allows it to flow more freely, and that allows more oxygen to be delivered to the cells. In other words, it allows more nutrition, which the blood vessels, the bloodstream carries the nutrition from our food to the cells, and it's what feeds and nourishes the cells. It's also what delivers oxygen, which the oxygen attaches to the hemoglobin of the red blood cells. The hemoglobin is, so this is why the blood cells are red, is because they contain iron, which, iron, it oxidizes, and that's why the element of iron it oxidizes as red. This is what rust is. This is why things oxidize red, and this is why our blood is red, and this is why, I've covered this also in Symbols of Power Part 2, and this is, we could go into debunking the reptilian aspects of blue bloods, and, they're copper, Devin Maggi spewing his absolute garbage, his BS about, the reptilian, other life forms are blue-blooded because they are, things like arthropods, like crabs, like certain squids, certain crustaceans, like the purple dye of the conch of the Phoenicians, which was murex, called murex, which is the sacred secretion, the sacred secret of the royal elites who created the purple. Who created the? No, this is. See, I should just go through and have all of my article presentations just brought up. That way I can just we can just jump all through all of this stuff, but it's so hard to, okay, so I do have this presentation still brought up. So, so the Royal Phoenicians, but I'm getting off track, I'm getting off topic. But it all ties together. I mean, it's all a giant web, and it all connects, so, but I forget where I was going. Okay, so the cavernosum of the goddess, the underworld, the cave, the dark wet. Oh yeah, I was getting into my interesting story about the cave curtains. Let me see if I can find any that are. It's also nicknamed cave bacon because when the light refracts through it, it creates a bacon-like, like a glow. It creates the layers of the limestone, of the calcite crystals. The calcifications create bacon-like layers, which looks just like bacon or lard. But see if I can find the cave curtains that. So there was a formation in the caverns when I worked there. We go through a little underground passage that, it's literally the shape of the Vesca Pisces. It's literally the fornix. It's the vaulted archway of the goddess. Same as the fornix in the brain is literally the fornix means a vaulted archway, which is where we get the word fornication. Okay, so I've got all my linguistics laid out here as well. The salty solution of the sun, the soul, the salvation, the salivation, where the chrism is born. So this was literally the shape of the passage that we went through in the caverns. It was a fault line, just like the sagittal fault line of the brain, the sagittal fissure, which divides the two hemispheres of the brain, as well as we have the sagittal bone of the skull, the cranial of the cranium, which sits above the sagittal The Sagittarius is, I forget off the top of my head what the sagittal means. Let me look that up real quick. Sagittal. Just because I want to mention it off the top of my head. Sagittal. I think it means it means arrow shape like resembling an arrow. So that, yeah, of course, that's why Sagittarius is Sagittarius, because it's the archer, it's shooting the arrow. But interesting. I'm not sure why that equates to the sagittal fissure of the brain. But so, anyways, I get off topic. But anyways, this little passage was shaped just like the fornix of the brain, and so there was literally there are cave curtains, which are limestone formations that form from the water flowing down the sides of the walls of the caverns, or the goddess cavernosum. So the water flows down the wet caverns of the goddess, underworld, of her, her sacral regions, and that's what creates these formations. As the calcite crystals, they begin to accumulate slowly over time. The calcite crystals build up over time as the water trickles down, and the crystals begin to deposit, and they create these depositions, which creates the layers of the formations. And so that's what creates the cave curtains, which are also the cave curtains, the hermit curtains, to vulgarly put it, is what we refer to in street slang as, her let me see if I could show you a funny clip of that on YouTube. The Metropolis. It was from a certain movie. I forget what movie it was from. It was from the spoof of 300. Yeah, I can't find it off the top of my head, but I wanted to show you just because it's hilarious. That's what I like to include in my presentations is humorous, interpretations of all of these things. But so yeah, the meat drapes, the meat curtains, the on and on and on. But so that's, it's the curtains of the goddess. It's the drapes, but so the Christ is born of the Pia Mater, of the tender mother, inside the third ventricle, which is the cave. So he's born in the manger of the goddess. The goddess, she seeks, or which is the manger is also in certain depictions and in certain stories, the manger was equated with the cave. And so there are certain esoteric depictions of the nativity scene where he is actually in the cave. Where is it? Did I skip it? I think I skipped it. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, is it not showing up? Damn it, I wanted to show... Oh yeah, okay, so the cave, yeah, so there's certain depictions. The allegory of Plato's cave, where you are entombed in the darkness of the underworld, which is the darkness of ignorance, the darkness, not just, all things have usually an air of negativity as well as an air of positivity encompassed within them. It's a whole. So when I refer to the darkness, it's not just the darkness of ignorance, but it's the darkness of all knowing. It is, it is the knowing of all of the unmanifest, of the da'at, which means wisdom, which means knowledge. It's the area where all of knowledge comes from. So you spring forth from the ignorance, the illusions, the delusions of the dark caverns, you emerge out of the womb into the light of day. So this is why certain depictions of the Christ he's depicted as the sacred pupa, as the larva of the scarab beetle, which the Egyptian scarabus, the scarabaeus, was the embodiment of the sun to the Egyptians, because they observed the sacred life cycles of nature. They observed the cycles of the animals and the creatures of nature, and they attained wisdom from the life cycles and the cycles of science of nature. So back to jump back to winged crown of anthropomorphic, the winged crown of the gods, basically. So that is why that if all my images would show up in this one article, it would make it a lot easier, because then I could just refer to it in this one article instead of having to jump back through the many different articles. But so that's what he is the pupa. He is represented as in the sarcophagus, the dung ball, the ball of dung that the scarabaeus rolls is representative of the tomb. It is the tomb where the scarab beetle lays its sacred eggs. It lays the eggs in the dark labyrinth, in the caverns of the underworld, the cavernosum of the earth goddess of Gaia. So they dig their tunnels. They bury their their sarcophagus into the earth. They lay their eggs inside the dung ball, and that is actually what becomes food for the pupa when it hatches, for the larva when it hatches. So the larva hatches, it eats of the death of the sarcophagus. Sarcophagus literally comes from Latin meaning get out of here, Romeo, go. I don't know how he broke it. He opened the door. But yeah, so it is. It represents the. Sorry, I forgot where I was. So it becomes food for the mummy. You know, for the death aspect. So sarcophagus comes from sarco and phagus. Phagus meaning to eat, meaning eating. Sarco or sarco. Well, I forget what the root word. Sarco means body or flesh. So the sarcophagus literally means flesh eating. It refers to, you know, it's the sarcophagus is where the flesh begins to decay. But that's what the process of mummification was all about. They mummify the Christ. They mummify the Karst, the Karst, the Christ, the KRS-1. You know, they mummify this in order to preserve the flesh from decaying, from being eaten. Why do they preserve it? Well, there could be if we want to get into some very very out there, conspiratorial concepts, they could preserve the body, in order to pass on through the underworld into the afterlife, to be reborn and resurrected into the fields of Elysium, or in the Greek Eleusinian mysteries as the same thing. All of these ancient cultures have what was the afterlife was the sacred fields. In the HBO or the HBO series Westworld, they call it the land beyond. In Westworld, in ancient Egypt, it refers to where the sun. In ancient Egypt, the Cometians, they didn't have a word for death, because there is no death. There is only eternal life. There is only eternal cycles of life, which comes from Greek kaikal or kaiklos, which is where we get our word kaik, which is why, it's a derogatory term that most people use for Jews, but it's not actually, it's actually a sacred term. Kaik literally comes from cycle. It comes from kaiklos. It means the eternal cycle. It's the same thing. It's the Ouroboros. It's not a derogatory term, yet we use these terms to, and I will probably get terminated. My channel will probably get terminated now from YouTube for even trying to educate people as to the true roots and origins of things, and to take them from being evil, to take them from being, derogatory and hateful, from hate speech. See, this is probably going to be deleted for hate speech. So, it was nice knowing you guys. It was fun. It's been fun doing all these presentations, but we're not allowed to any longer. The social justice warriors at YouTube and Google are going to now terminate my channel for even saying such a thing. So, yeah, look forward to that. But, yeah, so I'm being a drama queen here, but yeah, so the sarcophagus, the sarcophagus, that's why we have an esophagus, an esophagus, an eosphagus, the esophagus, which is, where we swallow, we consume, we devour, the sustenance, we swallow it down through the sarcophagus, and so that's, yeah, so the cycle. So then the pupa, then the larva hatches, and it then goes into its death state. It goes into its chrysalis phase. It goes into the transformation, the transfiguration. It becomes solidified. It crystallizes as the Christos, as the mummification. It solidifies, and it becomes they saw it as its death state. Let's see, where do I have the depictions? Oh yeah, so okay, the pupa, it goes into its Christos phase, into the hardened state. It hardens up, it crystallizes, it becomes it metamorphosizes, where it will then hatch, and it will emerge as a winged god. So it goes from a lowly a lowly serpent crawling on its belly in the dirt into an exalted winged god representing the sun itself, who is seen sailing and soaring across the skies, across the heavens, bringing with it its solar bark, which pushes the sun across the sky, as well as the moon as well. Let's not leave out the moon, because these dual aspects are, it's all there. So that is why, the winged, it's the essence of the thalamus. The scarabaeus is the symbol of the skull. It is literally the same symbolism of the skull as Schwaller de Lubitsch originally. I think it was Schwaller de Lubitsch is the one who first wrote about that. But the scarabaeus is the sign of was originally the sign of Cancer, the crab. And again, Cancer is is a representation of the sun. It is seen pushing the crab. Cancer literally is Greek or Latin for crab, or the lobster. It's the exoskeleton. It's the arthropod. It's the all of these different concepts. I don't want to read word for word through the presentation because it will go on and on. So I'm trying to summarize it briefly. But the Cancer is the exaltation of the sun. It is the sign of the summer solstice, which we are approaching here in just a couple days. Yeah, in 4 days is the summer solstice, is the exaltation of the sun, the longest day of the year. And also my birthday is, it's 420. Also my birthday is coming up on the 30th, which is just after the summer solstice as well. So the sign of Cancer is the exaltation of the sun. The sun is exalted in the sign of Cancer. And so the sign of Cancer is the height. It's known esoterically as the gateway of the gods. Or is it the gate? It's the gateway of men, actually. Although it should technically be reversed. But all of these concepts, they flip and they flop. So where it's considered that Cancer is the gateway of men, where men enter into the physical realm through the gateway of Cancer, and then they exit the physical realm back into the spiritual through the sign of Capricorn, which it's considered the gateway of the gods specifically because Capricornus representing is the planet Saturn or Cronus, or the king of originally the king of the winter season, the Holly king, the king of the winter, who battles with the king of the summer, the sun. So it's the dual aspect of the black sun of Saturn with the light, the white sun of Helios, or of Sol Invictus, of Apollo, of all the other solar archetypes, of Horus, so to speak, of Set and Horus, on and on and on. These same different archetypes, but I think technically it should be reversed, because Cancer, specifically for what I can show here, is that Cancer is the exaltation of the sun. So, and it also is it's the emergence of the scarabaeus, which is the representation of the sun, of the ancient Egyptian depiction of Khepri or Capri, which is where, again, this is why we have Capri sun. Capri actually means goat. So it's the sun of the, the exaltation of the sun. But Capri also, is phonemically linked with Kepri or Capra or Capira. Many different phonological variations and variants onto the Egyptian scarabaeus deity of the sun, who was the equivalent of Ra. So the dung beetle cycle of the sun. So the sun goes into the underworld. It is then reborn, and then it goes into the underworld again. It is then reborn. And this cannot happen for you flat earthers. This does not happen on the flat earth. It just doesn't. See, for those of you fools who are, sorry to put anyone down, but seriously, it's very foolish to think that the goddess Nut is referring to the firmament as a physical, firmament literally means a rock, a stone archway. It means a stone archway, which is, the stone archway is the Freemasonic vault of heaven. We covered all this in Symbols of Power Part 2 and Part 3. We can cover this infinitely in infinite number of ways. But so anyways, the goddess Nut as the firmament, as representing the celestial sphere of heaven, which is not literal. It's not a literal glass dome, because if it was a glass dome, then the goddess Nut would not be depicted as a bull goddess. Whoops, not nutrition facts. She would not be depicted as the goddess of the Milky Way, who excretes the sacred secretion of the sacred milk, as we've covered in Symbols of Power Part 3, into the heavens, as the root word of God comes from Proto-Indo-European gwe, which refers to a geyser, which is linked etymologically to geyser, to spew, to squirt, which refers to the sacred geyser, which was seen as the Milky Way galaxy spewing. The Milky Way galaxy was seen on the horizon vertically in certain areas and certain locations at certain times of the year as vertically. So the Milky Way was seen, if it was seen directly behind a sacred mountain or a sacred mount or a sacred mound of creation, then the Milky Way was seen as a literal spewing or an ejaculation. It was seen as a literal spewing or an ejaculation of, see, I've got the images here in my archives somewhere, but I don't think I have these ones labeled either. Galax, do I have? I don't think I have them labeled. They're just random slides that I've got somewhere in my archives. But yeah, I don't have it off the top of my head. Do I have it off the top of my head? I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, I get off topic. Okay, so the Milky Way was seen as spewing the sacred milk into the cosmos, into the heavens, into the dark abyss, the dark waters of the celestial sphere, or of the waters of Nu. The dark waters of Nu are the waters of the abyss, that, in other words, the primordial waters of creation, which is the amniotic fluid. And the sacred dome is the womb of the goddess. It's the pregnant belly. And the ejaculation of the earth god, in ancient cosmology, the earth was the god, and the sky was the goddess, was feminine. Where in later cosmology it became flipped, where then the earth became the goddess, and the sky became Father Oranos, and the earth became goddess Gaia. And for that same reason, that the goddess provides the fertility and the fecundity of life. But so they saw that as the sacred, but as the sacred ejaculation, or the spewing, the squirting of the sacred, you squeeze the udder and it secretes the sacred secretion of the sacred cow, the sacred cow deity of all ancient, cultures, whether it's Native American, have the bulls as the bison, seen with the anthropomorphic horned figure with the, the horns of the horned god, on and on and on. Ancient India, the Krishna with his sacred bull Mount Nandi, which on and on and on. The Sumerians, the Mesopotamian cultures, on and on and on. All worship the sacred bull, revere the sacred calf, the solar and lunar bull, because it represents the fertility, the strength, the power, the cycles of nature, the fecundity of nature, on and on and on. But, so, we could refer to that as the toroidal dynamic, but most of the depictions of Nut are in her form as the sacred cow. You see this image here. This is a very crude depiction, but that you see the Milky Way. The goddess Nut is the depiction of the Milky Way, the sky, the celestial sphere of heaven, which is held up by the axis mundi, the sacred pillar, which is the polar axis of the earth. And I'm just rehashing all this. I don't mean to rehash all the same stuff we've already covered in Symbols of Power Part 1, but so the Egyptian deity Shu, the root word, the Shu of Yeshua, of Yahshua, Yah is the ancient Egyptian word for the moon, the horns of the moon, the moon god. And Mesopotamia was the lunar moon god of Sin, or of Shin, and on and on and on. But we're getting off topic here. But yeah, so we could, if we could wanted to get into the flat Earth debates about the bull being the horned Taurus, and the plasma physics of the Taurus, of the toroidal dynamic, we could use that as an argument, but it's not, so it's not literal. The stone archway, the firmament, Firmament literally means firm, as in to stand firm, to steadfast, to hold strong, to hold firm. But the different roots, and I covered this fully in Symbols of Power Part 3, the firmament could be broken up, phonologically into, the ament, the amenti, the amentia, the halls of amenti, the underworld, the ament, the forgetting, the forgetfulness, the forgetting of the underworld, where knowledge is hidden and it is lost and it is covered up and it is it is occulted, it is lost, it is, the underworld represents ignorance, darkness. Let's see, where did I, back to the Plato's cave of ignorance. The underworld is the realm of forgetting. It's the darkness of that forgets the light of the sun, the light of consciousness, the light of enlightenment, the enlightenment of the inner light of mind. So, but then when the apocalypse comes, the apo of Calypso, in other words, the taking away of Calypso, the Greek goddess of the underworld, of death and destruction, of the Calypso is, she is the one who she eclipses Apollo, the eclipse of the sun. I think all my animations are. Yeah, this is one thing that I really hate about anywhere I publish my articles and stuff. They always lose, whether it's Facebook or Patreon. I don't know if they would still do this if I have my own website and I publish all my stuff. But anyways, all my images just keep disappearing. I have to keep going back over all the stuff that I've already covered, and I've spent years literally just finding the right images, composing graphics and all this stuff just to upload them to illustrate all of these concepts and the symbolism, and then to have just my articles be, the images just don't show up, and I have to go back over and over and over again and re-upload them, go through all, and it's just, I can't express my frustration enough. It's it's hard enough to do this one time, to organize this and write all this one time, but to have to go back through every single one of my articles over and over again and re-upload all of the images for all of, because they all keep disappearing, it's just, it pisses me off, but okay, so the Apollo of Calypso, or the Apo of Calypso, the eclipse of Apollo. So you have Calypso, the lunar moon, the moon, the black sun, which in the conjunction of the alchemical wedding, the alchemical marriage of the two spheres of creation, the two hemispheres, the two polarities of life and death, of light and dark, they come together, they form the sacred marriage to form the diamond wedding ring, the sacred alchemical ring. Yeah, my images are gone once again, but I do have images to illustrate that. We'll be seeing this, don't worry, I'll be covering this in Symbols Power Part 4 film once that's finished here. But yeah, which creates the sacred diamond. This is all, and I mean, you won't find this anywhere else. These are my original discoveries, for the most part, based on, what's already been out there, the ancient, mythology, cosmology, all of that, but repackaged in a brilliant, just original format. The sacred alchemical marriage, the sacred wedding ring of this is why we, our diamond wedding rings, which is the diamond, the mon, which is thrown diagonally across the sky, the diamond, it's diabolically thrown across the sky. Diabolos literally means to throw across, usually referred to as one's path. So in other words, the devil, Satan, Shatan, the opposer, the great opposer, is simply the aspects of cosmology, the one who is thrown across your path, who is thrown across it, who opposes you. It is anything. It's not a proper noun. It's not referring to a specific person, a deity. It's not referring to it. It's an archetypal principle of nature. It's a principle of life itself. You will not get anywhere in life without having obstacles and hurdles thrown across your path. To be thrown obstacles that you have to overcome. It means anything to be thrown in the path of, to be thrown thrown across your path. But so this is why we have, Mel Gibson's Apocalypto, the eclipse of Apollo, the Calypso, the Apo of Calypso. Apo is Greek for away from, means away. Calypso is the goddess of the underworld, to hide, to conceal. So, when the apocalypse comes, it is the great revealing. It literally means the lifting of the veil, the unveiling. That is why my channel is called Lifting the Veil. That's why I named it why it is. It's because it's the great revealing. It's the revealing of all the occulted, the obscured, the forgotten wisdom, the deliberately hid wisdom, that's deliberately obscured with a bunch of BS, with a bunch of ridiculous, what I call, religio-zealous fundamentalists, which is, the religio-zealous interpretations of things that take things literally. They don't understand the esoteric wisdom, the esoteric knowledge hidden behind all this stuff. But boy, we've really gone off track here, haven't we? I mean, but that was a good topic I wanted to address. But we still haven't even scratched the surface. We still haven't even gotten into the, this could literally, it will go on forever. And I mean, this is one of my favorite. I mean, it's huge. It's literally a book in and of itself. My articles are getting just so giant, so comprehensive. And you know what what really pisses me off, to veer off topic completely, is, I just saw a video on We Are Change's channel about how in certain areas of Europe they're proposing a bill to make memes illegal, under the guise of copyright infringement. So in other words, I wouldn't be able to do, any of my symbolism. I'm not going to be able to teach you guys any of this stuff. And the only way you can really grasp and learn this stuff is by the symbolism. I mean, I could tell this to you. I could, shut off I could shut all this off and just speak to you verbally. But you could create the image in your mind. So I could try to communicate it telepathically, to visualize it. I could do a pretty good job of describing it verbally, but it would just be so much more work. It takes that many more words to describe what you can convey in a single image, in a single depiction, in a single allegory, in a single, each letter, each word, each word contains worlds within itself. Which are spun together, are woven together to create, the web of the Norse web of word, which are woven together to weave our stories, which create, what we perceive as reality, the stories that influence our minds, that allow us to perceive what is real and what is a bunch of garbage and a bunch of speculative hearsay, which everyone loves. Everyone loves, feed me more of that hearsay. I love the stories. I love the speculation and the conjecture. But can we base reality, the truth about reality, off of stories? No, we can't. We can get understandings, we can learn moral lessons and stuff through stories. That's what myth and the power of allegory is all about. But it can also be used, as we know, to obscure and to deliberately hide and occult true meanings within these things. And so it's sort of, it's like getting anything, getting anyone to swallow the truth. You have to wrap it in a lie of bacon. You have to, you feed your dog his worm pills, you have to wrap it in the sweet, what he loves to eat, which is the bacon, so you have to wrap the truth in the core, or in the core truth in the outer facade, the outer shell of lies. Back to, where was I? So you have to wrap the core truth. You have to wrap the core truth in the outer shell of lies, the outer facade. The inner truth of the Christ within is wrapped in the sarcophagus of lies. It's enshrouded in the shell of mysticism in order to keep the wisdom from the profane, which I think is a crime in and of itself, because there would not be so much war, death, pestilence, famine, and and jihad all over the world if everyone had the true understanding of the simplicity of nature, which is embedded the esoteric wisdom of all traditions. But it is obscured, it is hidden, by the lies, by the false facade, the exoteric shell, which is the outer shell of lies, of the outer house, the golden egg of truth, the golden egg of the thalamus within your skull is encapsulated within the outer sarcophagus of your skull, of your cranium, of your cranial vault, your archway, your vault of heaven. The thalamus, the immortal flame of mind, the eternal phoenix, the resurrection of the rebirth of the soul invictus, the solar hero within us, the light of consciousness. And we could, if we wanted to, I could make this a lot more credible, and that's what I will in the presentations. Is I will that's why I like to do my astrophysiology, is because I can prove all of this with the legitimate medical anatomy citations. I mean, I can prove all of this medically, which most other people do not, and they cannot. I mean, as great as George Carey did with his time period that he was given, with the medical knowledge that they had of the time, it basically it wasn't up to speed, especially when everyone gets into the sacred secretions of the pituitary and the pineal, being the milk and the honey. That's a great mystical allegory, but when we refer to the actual to the pituitary and the pineal actually secreting a golden, hormone compound of whether it be dimethyltryptamine from the pineal gland or whether it be serotonin from the pituitary gland, I can't find nowhere in medical anatomy, nowhere in the whole vast archives of science, I can't find any actual proof that serotonin is golden. I mean, it's a great correspondence, and I'm not trying to knock that, but I'm trying to verify these things provably in the truth of reality. If we covered last week, I talked about if something is true, you can prove it from all angles. Not just not just mystically or allegorically, but you can take those allegories and you can prove them physiologically, medically, linguistically, symbolically. It goes on and on and on, from every, astronomically, astrologically, what have you, on and on and on. All the areas of the 7 liberal arts, so they hide that core, that golden egg, the sacred golden Easter egg of what's depicted in. I wanted to do maybe I'll do a short, film analysis of when this film came out, Ready Player One, which is a deep allegorical film by Steven Spielberg. I've been wondering what happened to Steven Spielberg. He sort of dropped off the face of the earth for a while. What was his last movie? I don't even know. What was it? I can't even remember. But so anyways, he's back. I imagine he probably dropped off, like same way George Lucas did. They both sort of, distanced themselves from the Hollywood mind control, especially with all the apocalypse of the lifting the veil of the pedo gates. I'm trying to watch my speech here because I don't want to get terminated or get deleted or whatever. So I'm trying to censor myself. But so I imagine, sidetrack. I imagine that's why they probably distanced themselves from Hollywood. But so deep as esoteric allegory within this film itself, Ready Player One. Technological allegories as to where we're going in the future of video games, how we are going to be, people will be, as I've been saying for a little while, is people will be lining up in droves to plug themselves into an artificial reality. In the film Ready Player One, it's called the Oasis. Again, Oasis referring to, ancient Saharan locales. The oasis is the sacred, the sacred fecundity, the fertile grounds where ideas and knowledge and wisdom and cultivation flourishes. That's what cultivation literally means. It comes from Latin cultus, which is where we get culture and where we get cult, because a cult is a following. It's a cultivation of knowledge. So, the oasis is where the knowledge flourishes, at the Library of Alexandria in ancient times. Where the oasis, the haven, the safe haven, which, let's get back into the Savior within us. The safe haven, the haven is literally the same linguistic etymology of heaven. The haven is the haven within you. It's the sacred sanctum, the inner sanctum within the cave of Brahma, the third ventricle, the innermost, the holy of holies of the inner tabernacle, the inner sanctum. The sanctum comes from Latin sanctus, which means holy. The holy, it literally means holy place. Which means to be sanctified, where the Christ is born and then he is crucified also. So it all occurs at this one point, at the crux of the skull, of the midbrain, of the thalamus, of the where the Christ is born, he is resurrected, and it's that one point. It's the nexus point where the cycle completes itself. It's where the cycle begins. It's the alpha and it's the omega. It's the alpha and the omega. It is the nexus point. It is the sacred golden cosmic egg laid atop the primordial mound, laid atop the axis mundi, which is the sacred world tree, the world pillar, the world mountain, the top of the pyramid, the truncated pyramid, the cap. It is the capstone, which is your skull, which is the cap, which is the head, which is the caput, when you are decapitated. When the pyramid is truncated, it is decapitated. It goes kaput. It is the knowledge is severed. The wisdom is held aloft. It is withheld from the ignorant masses down below, the masses who uphold the elites, the elites who are held aloft, who are held above. I mean, on and on and on. These are full presentations. But so the haven, the haven is heaven. Heaven literally comes from haven. And I can get deep, but I won't go too deep because this is a whole other presentation in and of itself. But so the heaven is to heave up. It is to be heaven. Heaven literally means heaved. Hey ave, the Hebrew hey, which is to rejoice, to exalt, to praise. It's the hieroglyph of the bull horns, of the sacred. I mean, we covered this in Symbols of Power Part 3 as well. The Hebrew hev, to lift up, to raise, to exalt. The shu, Yahshua, Yah, the moon, who is exalted. Praise Yah. I don't have my, it's the Hebrew and the Paleo-Hebrew depictions, the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs of hey, to praise, rejoice, to behold. Jubilation. To lift up, to exalt, to hold up, to, Shu, who lifts up, he exalts, he holds up the celestial sphere of heaven. This was typically the ancient Hebrew depiction of Yahweh, of hallelujah, hallelujah, which means to praise, to rejoice Yah, which is the moon god, to rejoice under Yah, to rejoice under the moon, under the light of the sun and the light of the moon. To behold, which is the sacred bullhorns. It's the twin pillars. It's the twin towers. It is, to lift up, to raise the roof, to exalt, up to sky, hev on, to lift up to on, to lift up to heaven. So in other words, to lift up the Son of Man, to heave your heavy burdens. May you find, or may you have haven in the sanctuary, the inner sanctum of the Holy of Holies, as you're heaving up your cerebrospinal fluid from sacrum, from os sacrum, meaning, the holy bone, from hell to heaven, from as above, so below, from, in physio, I mean, on and on and on and on and on. I mean, we could, don't worry, this is a lot more fluent and a lot more comprehensive. If you want to read it, feel free and read it, but, if you want to appreciate all of this, please, feel free and throw me a bone, for the hard labors and for bearing this heavy burden, for you guys to basically to just lay it all out. But so this is all about, the raising the dead, the resurrection, the lifting, the exalting of, holding, bearing your burdens, your internal burdens, and and transmuting your alchemical lead. The lead is the heaviest or the densest metal in alchemy. It's not the heaviest, densest chemical element that we know of, but it's the densest. I forget which is it. It's an alkali metal, I believe. Forgive me, I'm not too fluent on all the chemistry off the top of my head. It's been years since I was really good in chemistry class, but I didn't actually follow that through. So yeah. But so anyways, it's the densest, it's the heaviest metal in alchemy. It's the element of Saturn, the element of lead, which is the element of the winter time, which is the densest time. It's the deepest, darkest of depths of the underworld, the sacral regions, the the abyss. God damn it, that dog is such a little yapper. So, to transmute the lead into gold, from Capricornus to Cancer, from winter to summer, from Saturn to the sun, from Saturn to Helios, on and on and on. And I mean, I've got linguistic connections just insane all throughout all of this stuff. I'm not going off the top of my head, mainly because there's so many that I can't remember all of it off the top of my head. It's so deep. It's such a broad scope, such a broad expanse, and again, that's what's so, beautiful and amazing, but also so, can be, it's hard to convey, because the realm of linguistics, I mean, linguistics comes from mythology, it comes from astronomy, and it comes from symbolism. I mean, all of these sciences are one. They are one unified science. And because they are so unified, because everything is so interconnected, it becomes very hard to describe, in a deep descriptive way. But that's what the full films are all about. That's why it takes months to go through and compile all of it in a linear narrative, because it's not linear. It is amorphous, it is spherical, it is unified, it is a unified whole. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But so that's in essence, but speaking of alchemical gold, in alchemy, the chrysopia it means the transmutation into gold, coming from Greek chrysos, the Christ, the chrism, the anointing, the shining one, the light, the crystal light, the prism, which refracts, and it refracts the sparkling light of God. So just as our mind is the prism, or most people, erroneously like to call it the prison, of spirit. And I don't ascribe to what everyone else, especially, not the Gnostics or anyone that likes to talk about the physicality, the physical reality as a prison, for the spirit. I think that's complete garbage. This is, we can make this whatever we want it to be. It doesn't have to be a prison for the spirit. It is a vessel of expression for the spirit, for the soul, for the light of consciousness, which slows down, and the light of the eternal source shoots through, and it refracts through the prism of our mind, through the pyramidal prism. Oh, sorry, I've got my screen share showing you guys nothing here. That doesn't help anyone. Was I looking for the the flux capacitor? I could show. I think I've got this in one of my articles as well, but I think it's actually in the same article I was just going through. Oh, where did my window go? Okay, it's not showing up. Wait, what? Where did it go? Well, shit. I don't know where my Safari window went to. It just disappeared. What the hell? Oh my god. Okay. Well, anyways, we are. We'll go 6 more minutes. So sorry, I rambled on and on and on and on and on, but we covered some good. We covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of symbolism, and you and Chiron Last on YouTube are like the best when it comes to the etymology. And yeah, again, I'm not a fan of Chiron. I mean, I liked the Golden Web series, but I don't agree with any of the conclusions that when it comes to the law and the legalese and all of that. But again, he likes to paint the whole like conspirified narrative of, we are enslaved to alien masters, and this is a prison, and we're all screwed, and and all of that, and the moon is a holographic technological matrix that we are doomed to be enslaved to, and all of that. No, I don't buy it at all. You guys can think whatever you want about that, but I disagree with all of that. And honestly, he's misusing and misinterpreting all of the etymology. It's great. I like it. I enjoy it because it's doing the same thing I do. It's painting an archetypal story based on these puzzle pieces, but I disagree with the picture that he's painting. I disagree with the overall puzzle that he is putting together based on those pieces of etymology. And that's what I want my channel to be. I want it to be credible, and I want it to be, provable from just about every aspect that you can prove something from, whether it's, all these other aspects. But yeah, so we are reaching a close here, guys, in about 5 minutes. We've gone an hour over time that I intended to, but time flies. It really does. So especially when you're the one actually speaking, I mean, it's insane, like how quick that 2 hours, this 2 hours has gone by. But what I'm going to do is, and this is going to take a lot of work and a lot of editing to go back through, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and cut down a lot of these specific different segments, although this one really wasn't, it wasn't a bunch of different questions that I answered. It was just one topic that we discussed. But I do want to go through and cut it down. That way it can just be like 15-minute segments, so that way everyone can appreciate and enjoy it, and, and doesn't have to, withhold themselves from all of this because it's too long. It's too long, didn't watch, too long, didn't read. I've got a 5-minute attention span. I don't have time, on and on and on, blah, 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 all of that good stuff. But yeah, so that's about it. Any last words from you guys? Let me see. I'm sorry if I missed anything important along the way. Where the hell did my Safari page windows go? What the hell? It might be this new mouse that I got screwing everything up, but I couldn't see if anyone left a super chat. I'm not no, it doesn't look like it. So yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm glad I didn't miss anyone on that during my... I'm sorry, when I... okay, yeah, okay, Armando, yeah, you did leave me a super chat. Okay, so, Armando Pacal, please share info on Lilith. Okay, so I will, I don't want to leave you out, especially, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to miss you, but, snap, my windows aren't pulling up, so let me just go ahead and close out of my stuff and try and reopen it again. But yes, Lilith. Let's see. I've covered Lilith in the Black Star presentation. I've covered Lilith in, I think the most relevant context to cover Lilith is in my most recent full presentation. One of my favorites is the Sacred and Profane, and I probably am not even allowed to show any of this on screen You know, if you guys got kids around, this one is a mature theme presentation. It does contain nudity, so I am going to have to really watch what I'm showing here, because I don't want it to be. It is sexual education. It is adult, basically mythological adult archetypal education. It is not. It is both. It encompasses all aspects of the goddess, both sacred and profane, which is what the goddess Lilith represents. Lilith comes from, you know, she is Akkadian, comes from Lilitu, which means, essentially it means, you know, Lilitu. I forget off the top of my head. I've got it here somewhere. Lilitu means demon. I believe it means demon goddess. Lilith is the demon goddess. Let's see exactly where I have it. Just after that, I get into it. I begin this presentation with the sacred, and then as it gets to the end of the full book, or of the full, you know, what will be a film, but it's basically, this is a book. As I get to the end of it, we get into the profane. So it goes through the cycles of the goddess matriarchy. It goes through the cycles of consciousness as well. So it begins with the exalted aspect of the goddess, and then it wraps up with where we are today, which is basically the decline, the fall of man, or the fall of womb man, of the woman and the man, of humanity itself, represented by these archetypes, which represent the fall of the goddess. You know, as we covered in Symbols of Power Part 3. So if you really want to know, it's the same stuff that I covered in Symbols of Power Part 3, about the, you know, the ritual slaying of the goddess. You know, the slaying, the laying of the goddess, the conquest, the sexual conquest of the woman, of the goddess, by what we call the patriarchy, which is actually, it's always been a matriarchy. It always will be a matriarchy. The femininity behind the masculine, the feminine within the masculine. So, you know, so in other words, it's the demonization, the decline of the sacred feminine, of the divine feminine, into what has become modern neo-third wave feminism, which is what my channel will probably eventually be terminated for, you know, as we continue to get deeper and deeper into this. Who knows, it might be terminated just for this one video alone, you know, even mentioning third wave feminism and social justice warriors, and, you know, the decline of the sacred feminine archetype in under the guise of you know, upholding the feminine virtues and values. But it's not. It's actually degrading and declining the aspects of the goddess, you know, of trying to compare the goddess to the masculine, to the feminine to the masculine, which these two aspects, they are unified. They are polar aspects unified within a singular whole. And, you know, neither or can be, you know, they do fluctuate. They fluctuate back and forth. You know, the cycles of physics, you know, it ebbs and flows from one to the other. And it fluctuates as a pendulum swings. It undulates. It ebbs and flows in the sacred sine wave, the undulations of the sphere of creation. You know, since waves aren't actually physical 2D, two-dimensional waves, they're a function. It's a verb. It's something that the universe does. You know, so. But where did I get into this exactly? So the fall of the goddess goes from the sacred to the profane, throughout the mythological aspect of essentially being pillaged, being raped, which is to be raptured, as we covered last week. You know, to be raptured as the goddess is carried off. You know, and essentially this word has a very fine line of sacred and profanity within it. You know, it is both sacred and profane, as you know, because rape, essentially rapture means it means a state of ecstasy, while rape means to carry off. To a raptor is you know, a raptor has talons. It has sharp claws, and the reason it's called a raptor is because those talons, they grasp things and they carry it off. They carry it away. You know, the sacred phoenix, the sacred eagle, it feeds upon the serpent, and it feeds upon the lower nature, upon the lower aspects of sexuality, of, you know, of exploitation, and of, you know, the human nature. So it grasps upon that serpent, and The dragon, the phoenix, the dragon, the serpent the snake is food for the eagle, is food for the phoenix, is food for the higher mind, for the winged crown of the rebirth, of the eternal resurrection, of the fire, of the knowledge, of the flame within us. So, so the phoenix or the eagle feeds upon it, feasts in it, it raptures, it carries off that lower nature, and it feeds upon it. So, this can be interpreted in many different aspects, in many different, allegorical stories, and it can be told in many different ways. And that's why I have so many different articles and presentations, is because this material is so rich that it covers so much ground in so many different aspects of society, of pop culture, of multimedia, of all these things, Hollywood, Hollywood esoterica, on and on and on. But oh crap, I probably shouldn't have had that image showing on the screen the whole time, because now it's gonna be, now it's gonna have nudity, and it's gonna ruin the whole. Damn it, damn it. But yeah, so the goddess was originally, she is the sacred, bringer. She is the light bringer. She is the bringer of the dawn. She is the bringer of the light. She gives birth to the sun of consciousness. She gives birth to the son of the morning. She is the dawn goddess who gives birth to the light of knowledge, to the light of wisdom. She is the goddess of the light. She is the goddess of heaven, the queen of heaven, as well as the demon goddess of the underworld. The many different spectrums. It's a full spectrum of the goddess. These aren't different goddesses. These aren't different archetypes. These are all one and the same. It's just cyclical. It is the hero's journey, whether it's masculine or feminine, however you want to portray it. She is the essence of Sophia, of wisdom, the bringer of knowledge, the bringer of the light of consciousness to humanity. She is the earth goddess. She is the Pistis Sophia. She is the primordial goddess of the womb. She is the primordial womb, the goddess Nuit, the primordial waters, of the black abyss, which is what the dark underworld, the demon goddess of the nighttime is. The goddess is cast down, as all things are, as all cycles of nature, they rise and they fall. As all cycles of consciousness, of knowledge, it rises, it goes through golden ages of peaks and pinnacles at the heights of heaven, to have in the sacred sanctum of the sanctity of the sanity of the safe haven of heaven, down into the dark depths of the underworld of destruction, of decay, of decline, of degrade, of the season. And so the winged the winged queen of heaven, the crowned, the high flying one, the Har, the Har, or the Hor, Hor, the Hor means high flying one. So the high flying Isis, the exalted goddess of the solar and lunar horns of the moon and the sun, the high flying one is then cast down, and her wings are severed. Her wings are essentially are destroyed. Her wings are cast. She has been cast down, and through many different aspects of society, of civilization, not just the I forget where I'm going exactly, but the queen of heaven then becomes the queen of the queen of the damned. She becomes Lilith. Eve and Lilith are one and the same. Lilith is the predecessor, the wife of Adam before Eve, but they are one and the same. They are dual polarities of the same goddess. The Eve is the evening at the nighttime. She is the evening time of where the sun, of where the light and the dark are even. She is so the Eve is the exalted aspect, the venerated goddess of the veneration of the Veneris, which is Latin for Venus. So Eve is literally the what is it? Ave Maria. I forget Ave off the top of my head. Ave, I believe, I forget. It means farewell. Ave means farewell. Ave Maria. Goodbye to the goddess. Goodbye to the the decline of the goddess. So again, heaven, hey ave, praise, rejoice. Hey ave, to heave up. Again, the same cycles of the eclipse, of the unification of the masculine and the feminine. The coming and the going. All these different aspects. But I had a specific reference to Lilith here somewhere, I thought, or is it just purely archetypal? I thought I got into the actual. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it's in one of my other circulations. I forget. But yeah, so the Queen of Heaven, the Queen of Heaven is Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, which is Virgo. She is the Virgo, the Virgin Mary, Ave Maria, Mary, Maria. She is the exalted goddess, the Queen of Heaven, from ancient, the Babylonian Akkadian, which was Ishtar, or Sumerian Ishtar, which was the same equivalent epithet of Akkadian, which was Lilith, Lilitu, who is the demon goddess of the dark nighttime. She was considered the owl goddess. Why? Because the owl is always found under the darkness of the moon. She's found under the light of the moon. Yeah, there we go. Okay, Lilitu means screeching. It literally means owl. So Lilitu means the screeching one. She is the screeching owl. So the cry of lamentation. That quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan the Barbarian. What is it? This one quote summarizes the whole aspect of the masculine and the feminine and the fall of the goddess. See your enemies driven before you. See your enemies driven before you. Hear the lamentation of the women. I forget off the top of my head, but that's it's the lamentation of the goddess, who is Inanna. It's the descent of Inanna, the same story of descent of Inanna, who goes into the underworld. She is slain. She becomes this archetypal slain god. So it's not just a gender issue. It's not just a masculine feminine issue. It's the same thing, same hero's journey. The goddess carries the torch. She is the dawn goddess who bears the light of enlightenment. She is the bringer of the dawn. Who is the torch bearer. She is Lucifer. She is who is the archetypal Diana Lucifera. Who she becomes the torch bearer of the underworld. She carries the torch, the sacred fire of knowledge, the eternal flame, the flame imperishable, the light of consciousness. She carries that through the underworld, through the journey of from light into darkness, from darkness into light, as all initiation rituals go. You have to journey. You can only find the light in the dark. You can only find your own light in the dark. You can only see the stars, in the darkness of the nighttime. The light only shines in the dark. The on and on and on. The light exists within the darkness. The darkness exists within the shadow of the light. So this dual polarity aspect of nature. On and on and on. But so one thing you guys may or may not appreciate, or may or may not be upset about my channel, is we are going to cover archetypal mythology. We are not going to cover literal theology. We're not going to talk about the bloodlines of Cain and or any of that garbage. It's all of that is irrelevant. It doesn't hold any truth in reality. It just doesn't. What holds the truth in reality are the stories that these theologies, these texts, these stories are portraying. They are portraying a hidden underlying theme, a hidden underlying story. But let's see. I had Lilith also I have it in the Serpent Goddess, Delio, but I've also got it in the Black Star Code. Yeah, I hope my audio and everything is doing good. And my stream has been very slow. I apologize. All of this is probably lagging pretty bad, but my stream has been very low, very poor connection. Okay, the Dark Star. Again, we're getting into the same material that we've already covered. You know, in astrology, we have the Black Moon Lilith. The Black Moon Lilith is the Dark Star. You know, the black star. So it's not just the black sun of Saturn. It's, you know, there are many different allegorical aspects of these terminologies. But Black Moon Lilith, the Dark Star, which is actually a Lagrange point in astronomy between the Earth and the lunar apogee, which is the point. It's a point of gravitational pull between two celestial spheres. So yeah, all of this cosmology and this mythology, it doesn't apply to a flat Earth, and the flat Earth just basically tries to denounce all of it. It tries to corrupt all of it, and it completely ruins all ancient sacred knowledge and everything that we hold to be true. It just completely destroys all of it, and the way it does that is it just says, oh, none of it exists. You know, oh, it's all actually literal. You know, all the mythologies are literal. You know, oh, and then at the same time, none of it exists. But I diverge. I digress. But so Lilith is always the reference to the moon, and Lilith means the screeching, you know, the screeching owl. Once again, nocturnal owls are nocturnal. They are only, you know, they are active during the night. The owl, the sacred owl, is the predator. It's the bird of prey. It is the demon. I mean, how are demons always depicted? Do you guys? I'm sure you guys are aware of how demons are always depicted in Hollywood. You know, the black eyes. You know, the large pupils. You know, the reptilian, you know, slit pupils, which, you know, the cat-like eyes. You know, the demon goddess of the underworld. So the sacred owl, you know, sits upon the sacred tree of knowledge, the tree of wisdom, which is why the owl is the sacred symbol of the wisdom. But the owl, as we covered in Symbols of Power Part 1, has many, many allusions to the owl is irrefutably tied and irreversibly connected to the goddess. I mean, you can't separate the owl from the goddess, because the owl is the very symbol of the goddess. It's the very symbol of the goddess anatomy, the goddess symbolism, the Vesica Piscis geometry, as the owl is the owl's face is the symbolism of the Vesica Piscis, as we just covered. Within the brain, it corresponds to the anatomy of the human brain, the dual hemispheres, you know, which creates the third ventricle, which is the Vesica Piscis, the mandorla geometry, which is the beak of the owl. The beak of the, do I have it in here? No, I don't have it in here. I've got it somewhere else in another archive or another presentation somewhere. But, you know, so Lilith is just one of many related goddess archetypes of the darkness, of the nighttime, you know, which is also the fierce, untamed, primal, just the crude, unrefined, untamable aspect of the divine feminine. You know, she is. It's not just like it's not just an evil thing. You know, it is the suppressed aspect of the feminine. It is the suppression. It is the abuse. It is the desecration of the goddess. You know, the descent of Inanna into the underworld. She is hung up on a meat hook, and, you know, by Ereshkigal, her sister. And, you know, she then emerges and is resurrected, reborn once again as the goddess of the dawn. So, you know, it's that simple. You know, all of these things are so simple, but yet I like to really go deep into the linguistics and show how many connections and just how many more stories can be woven into all of these things. But yeah, so the Lilith is she's the essential, she's the Kundalini. You know, she's the serpent goddess. Lilith is, and again, my images aren't showing up here. But Lilith, in the Garden of Eden, she is the serpent. She is the artwork depiction of the serpent goddess. I probably shouldn't even type it in because a lot of, and I probably shouldn't even be showing these images either, because I don't want this to be taken down or anything. But so Lilith is associated with the night creatures. Ancient Hebrew linguistics refers to Lilitu, as the screech owl, the night hag, the night monster. So it's the psychological origins of what demons are. It's the very primeval fear of our darkness, our most deeply embedded and deeply seated roots of fear within this human psychology, which is rooted in the basal ganglia of the human brain, the reptilian complex, which is based on fight or flight, of survival mechanisms, which is influenced in the midbrain as the hippocampus or the amygdala, which is the complex that responds to fear. And so what induces our deepest, most inner, our deepest psychological fears is the fear of darkness. Why? Because in ancient times, and in the primordial evolution of man, darkness was the time when all the predators came out. All the evil animals came out and they slaughtered the tribe. They slaughtered, the people. They ate and they preyed upon humanity, because humanity is not an apex. I believe I already said this in Symbols Power Part 2, but humanity is not an apex predator. We are not at the pinnacle of the food chain by any means whatsoever. We are just another intricate part, or probably not even essential, but that's a whole other thing. But is where the place of humanity, what role we play in the ecological sphere, in the biosphere. And I've got a whole other theory. I mean, that would be a very interesting topic to talk about, is my theory on what humanity's role is in the cycle, in the web of life, in the ecosystem. But I won't go into that. But so, yeah, the demon goddess, of the nighttime, the evil one, she is the succubus who preys upon, who comes to man in dreams, and she sexually assaults them in their dreams. Oh my God, what a crime, right? What man is feared of the succubus coming to her in the night? Not me. I mean, that's for sure. I like the dark aspects. I like the shadow aspects especially of goddess mythology, of demonism and all those things. I mean, it's interesting. That is where all the knowledge, all the wisdom is held, is in the darkness of the underworld. The treasure, the greatest treasure, is found in the primordial depths at the bottom of the ocean, at the depths of the black abyss, in the realm of the passage of the veil of Da'ath in mystical Kabbalah, in mysticism. But yeah, so the knowledge emerges forth from the darkness. The light emerges forth from the goddess womb, from the goddess nether regions. So this is why the demon goddess of the underworld is always depicted as the sacred lunar goddess. She is the dark aspect. Isis has two dual aspects, as both the solar goddess, the solar cow goddess, as well as the lunar demon goddess of the nighttime, in her both light and her dark aspects. So it's the shadow goddess of the underworld. So this is what all the stories, all the movies, all the archetypes are talking about. It's all the same thing. So we could go on and on and on. That's basically just a rough, very chaotic summary of all of that. I'm sorry it's not very fluent when I go through all of this verbally, mainly because I'm talking to myself here, so I ramble on and on. But if I was able to bounce my ideas off of you guys and have a discussion, it would flow a lot more fluently and all of those things. But so yeah, that's basically the summary of it. Lilith is the queen of the damned. She is we find Lilith especially in True Blood, the vampire goddess, the queen of the. I've got an image in here somewhere in my yeah, somewhere in this, but again, I don't know where any of it is. I'd have to look specifically, but I thought I put it in. Oh, I put it. No, no. Did I put it in the Lady Gaga Fame Monster one? I forget where I put it. Lilith, the vampirism, the psychic vampirism of our. Oh, actually, that's what it is I left the Fall of the Goddess out of here. I was actually starting to work on it, and then my system refreshed, and I lost all of the demon goddess aspect of the fame monster aspect. But it was supposed to fit right in here somewhere about the demonization of the goddess of how the sacred prostitute, or the sacred harem, the sacred priestess, the temple priestess became demonized, became cast out, and became personified as the filthy whore, the putrid, the puta, the putrid whore, the stinking. I'm sorry, but that's literally what the etymology. I mean, I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, but that's literally what the archetypal linguistics and the mythology and the symbolism all gets into, is the puta, the put, the Latin putidus, the stinking, the foulness of harlotry. And originally a harlot was actually a man. A harlot was a male sexual prostitute, or it was actually a wanderer, a vagrant. But it was originally a male aspect, and so the root word, we cover the root words of hara and har and hor as well in some of my other presentations. We covered it in the Sanskrit presentation that I just posted as well. But that refers to the belly. Again, the hara in Japanese is the belly. It's the power center. It's the sacral, or not the sacral, the solar plexus. Forgive me. The orange fall of the solar plexus, the orange, the sun, the fall of the sun, the fall of the season, which is also it's the power center, where the spirit is said to descend into matter, from the psychological consciousness down into the physicality of the sacral regions, which gives birth to physical life. We give birth mentally from the Vesica Pisces of the fornix of the brain, through the heart, through the heart chakra, which is also the the sacred union, the sacred, the hieroskamos, as above so below, the Midgard and all of that. But yeah, on and on and on. But that's so that's about it. We've gone way over time, and it's getting to the point where people aren't going to be able to watch this or want to get into any of it because it's too long. So we will wrap it up there, and that will be the extent of it. Am I still on air? Did I lose you guys? I'm not seeing my chat or anything anymore. Did I lose you guys? Let me see. Okay, are you still there? Okay, I think you're still there. All right, but yeah, that should be it. And whether I'm still on air or not, thank you guys. I don't know if there's anything I missed. But yeah, productive than it has been, especially than the last live stream was just I think it was sort of like a train wreck. I've been contemplating, not doing these anymore just because of, there really is a lack of interest, and there was a lack of support. There was a lack of what I saw as, actual substance. I want it to be a house of wisdom. I want it to be, like an ancient temple, where we can gather and discuss philosophy and high, lofty concepts and deep, and deep concepts as well. Not have it be completely derailed and, diverted into just complete conspiratorry and all of that stuff that I consider to be just complete fringe lunacy. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. If you're new to my channel, you know the things have been coming along, so I'm sure you know to make sure to like, subscribe. Feel free to please, you know, share my content around. Make sure to hit the bell notification on the subscribe button that way, and click, you know, get all notifications. That way you can get post updates, you know, graphic image updates, updates on my full articles, presentations, what have you. That way you're not missing out on anything. The only way to bypass social media censorship, the YouTube algorithms do not show all creators to people, even if you specifically sign up for updates and all of that. So the best way to bypass that is to sign up as a patron. That way you get email notifications for every update that I do. I email notify all of my patrons for every update to an article that I do. When I go back into an article and I add new graphics and I add new information and I add new stuff to it, I automatically give email newsletters to all my patrons, so you can enjoy those perks as well as some other perks that you guys may find interesting. Once I actually have the clothing and the merch line up, with all my symbolism and, you know, a lot of the etymology and, you know, a lot of the just deep stuff that you can wear around, I'll be able to offer that as a reward, you know, as a perk. You know, you can get a free t-shirt, or, you know, a free all of that stuff. And also, again, I'm working on getting the full DVD out to where I can, you know, publish the full Symbols of Power based on the symbolism and all of that, to where you can receive the DVD as a perk as well. And so, yeah, I'm trying to, you know, get more ways to, you know, be able to give more back to you guys for your support and for your appreciation. So, you know, I feel like I don't want to just, I don't know where I'm going.